Welcome back to a very special 1-year anniversary edition of the Keb BKA Beloved Show. I'm your host, Keb BKA Beloved, of course, covering sports among other things. And today, the first thing we're covering is thank you. Legitimately, from the bottom of my heart and the top left of my kidney, doing this podcast for the past year and getting the long form thoughts out and building deeper connections with the audience that listens to this as opposed to watches more of my short form stuff is genuinely something I do not take for granted. And I never want the people who listen to this to think that I take it for granted. Trust me, I do not. This means a shit ton to me. So believe me when I say thank you. And do not take the following thing I'm about to say personal, because there are going to be some changes that are coming to the way I make content for the upcoming future. And I'll explain why. This podcast will not exist the way it does now. It's going to happen, but not in the way it currently does. And I also won't be doing pre-game previews for every single primetime game the way I've been doing. Now, the previews are for the simple ground that I don't want to. And I know that sounds minimalist and childish, but hear me out. Like, I've been doing this content-wise in general, gonna be my 2-year anniversary in November. This show in general for a year. I've made almost 1,000 videos at this point. And if, God forbid, my channel got deleted overnight, how many of those videos would be worth uploading again? Maybe 100? Maybe? And to work as hard as I do for all those videos I made and put all my hard work into to age completely like milk, rub me the wrong way when I think about the goals I have and the type of content creators that I look up to and the people that I want to be like. Like, I can still go to Who's Next Sports timeline right now and just binge watch their videos. I can binge watch Overly Sarcastic Productions all day long. I can still go back and watch Hot Damn My Rock videos now, even though they're almost a decade old at this point. And if I'm being honest with myself, outside of the Black Quarterback History Month videos, maybe, the February Flowers ones do have that type of staying power, but my performances in them are so lackluster that I don't think they do, but people love them still. So who am I to judge? And that's just something I really want to change. And also, I hate gambling. I tried to do it, y'all. I tried to do the gambling because that's what people wanted. People wanted me to do gambling content. I hate it. I tried. I hate it. It's y'all do you. The gambling thing is not for me. That's not how I like to enjoy sports. That's not how I like to make my content. If you want to gamble. It's just not going to come from me. But to celebrate the past year, what was, I put together a little top 5 clips, kind of a greatest hits, most viewed moments selection. And that's kind of what this week's podcast is going to be. Nothing really happened this past week of football that I have to talk about anyways, outside of Drake May's debut, which went about the way most of us expected, right? So we're going to do top 5 clips. I'm going to introduce every single clip. And then no podcast next week. And then the week after, we'll go from there. Sound good? Cool. All right. So first clip of the top 5, I affectionately refer to as the run the damn ball rant. This is immediately after the NFL Conference Championships, where both the Lions and the Ravens lost because they abandoned the damn run and lost the game because of it. Ravens fans and Lions fans, y'all should be fine hearing this because both of y'all are good and running the ball just fine now. So clearly you learned your damn lesson. You can thank me for that. Roll the clip. Me personally, the side of the decision making I'm on is that I'm pissed at Todd Monken. And we can throw Ben Johnson in there too. I don't know why you guys are letting him skate, because me and the rest of the run the goddamn ball hive are feeling very vindicated this weekend because both the Lions and the Ravens would have won if they would have just ran the damn ball. You know, football is not an easy sport by any means, right? But sometimes the shit don't got to be complicated. If you do a great thing and the other team is not good at defending that thing, do that thing. I'm an offensive genius. Oh my God, I'm a Shannahanian. Like, come on now. You just watched these two teams get ran on up and down the field last game, and they managed to win by the skin of their teeth. If you're the Lions, you just had the run game working that whole first half. That's why they were up 24-7. And in the second half, they ran the ball 7 times in the second half. 7! And for the Ravens, They had 16 run plays in total, 8 of which being Lamar scrambled. So on design run plays, it was 8. 2 of them were carries to Zay Flowers. So running backs only got 6 carries. This team led the league in rushing, y'all. 32 carries per game. All right, I'm speeding a little bit. I gotta go back. I gotta run it back. All right, well, we'll start with Detroit at San Francisco then. I alluded to it before, but I gotta say it again. This game was less about Dan Campbell's fourth down decisions and more about a 49ers team who believed in the marrow of their bones that the football gods fucked them last year by way of Brock Purdy's elbow. And that Super Bowl title was theirs. And goddamn it, since last January, they've done a pretty damn good job convincing us that they're correct. Now, I don't play the if game because Brock Purdy wasn't struck by lightning. He was struck by Hassan Reddick. And now here they are, a year later, playing the exact same team that they would have been playing if Brock Purdy was, in their opinion, if Brock Purdy was healthy last year. Funny how that works. But more importantly, on Dan Campbell's fourth down decisions, did Dan Campbell make Josh Reynolds drop the ball twice? Did Dan Campbell give Brock Purdy a speed boost and make him look like White Michael Vick out there? Dan Campbell make Jahmyr Gibbs fumble? Speaking of which, this is back to Ben Johnson. Jahmyr Gibbs had 2 fumbles all year long, which for a rookie, pretty damn fantastic, right? So this is not a recent occurrence. It's not a frequent occurrence for him, right? He fumbled with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. He didn't have another carry for the rest of the game. The rest of the game. He had 2 targets and 1 catch. I believe that went for 2 yards. Come on. Now, you can't abandon your rookie. You can't. It's bad enough you abandon the run. You abandoned your rookie because of 1 mistake in the playoffs. You cannot do that, bro. Oh, but sure. It's all Dan Campbell's fault. It's all the fourth down decision's fault. And if you've been on this channel and you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me say this ad nauseum. 1 play does not decide a game. There are so many different things that could have went one way or the other that if this thing would have went differently, the whole outcome of the game would have been different. For example, the Dan Campbell's fourth down decisions let a Brock Purdy prayer bounce off of that DB's face mask and into the hands of Brandon Ayuk. Now, on Brandon Ayuk's side, I don't want to make it sound like it was luck. Hell of a play by Brandon Ayuk. If God willing, he makes the Hall of Fame one day, that's the first play on the highlight reel. Absolutely fucking incredible play by him. What did Dan Campbell's fourth down decision have to do with that? The ball hit the DB in the face mask. You won't get too many opportunities better than that, right? Jesus, man. It's just so frustrating to watch that game as somebody who picked the Lions before the game. But even before the game, I said, hey, if the Lions want to win this game, they need to run the ball no less than 40 times. Make this game look like something out the 1980s. Run the ball some more, and when you're tired of running the ball, run it again. They only had 29 rush attempts. They were getting 6.3 yards a carry, bro. Come on. Come on, bro. It's not like they're in a position where they just, all right, we have to come back in this game, so we have to keep throwing the ball. No, you were up 17 points. Keep running the ball. Ugh. All right, that's I'll get more on the line shortly. But for the 49ers, that's 2 straight games in a row after hearing all season long how y'all can't come back from late game leads, and you guys have done it twice in a row. Salute to y'all. That's a hell of an accomplishment. And you know what I love about Brock Purdy? What makes Brock Purdy awesome is every game for him, he does just enough to prove both sides of the Brock Purdy argument correct. No matter what side of the Brock Purdy argument you stand on, he does just enough things to make whatever the side you stand on feel vindicated. And that's so funny to me. If you want to say that Brock Purdy's lucky and he's carried by his team and oh, he's just another system quarterback. Well, that throw off the DB's face mask into Brandon Ayuk's hands definitely does not help that case. Or the throwing across his body to Brandon Jennings. What's the dude's actual name? Not Brandon Jennings. I'm sorry. Hold on. Jawan Jennings, first only catch, by the way. For Jawan Jennings reaching back like Odell Beckham trying to grab this hand off the ground. Yeah, you can see that and say, oh yeah, Brock Purdy's lucky. Or if you're on the side that Brock Purdy's the greatest quarterback since Joe Montana, you can look at the second half of that game and say, oh, Brock Purdy brought us down from 17 points. And both of you are correct from your observation. Your conclusion, but your observation, yeah, you got it. Oh man, just a frustrating game. And I said this in my preview right after the game. What a kick in the dick. If you are a Lions fan, just an absolute kick to the scrotum. If you're a Lions fan, after 50 years, you finally get a chance. You can smell the Super Bowl. I know y'all were already booking flights to Vegas at halftime. Up 17, shit, I would too. Just for it to end like that, Lions fans did not deserve that. You didn't. You just didn't. But unfortunately, that's how it went. And you know whose fault it wasn't? Dan Campbell, the person who that aggressive mind state we all fucking loved. Now we want to blame that for the reason they lost. That's not how this works. You live by the sword, you gotta die by the sword. Sucks to suck. All right, let's get to this Ravens-Chiefs game. And same thing, bro. Same thing, bro. Run the damn ball. Run the damn ball. Oh my God. That might be what I name this episode. Run the damn ball. Oh, Jesus, sweet baby Jesus. Just before we get to the running the damn ball part, it's just, so the Ravens game started, right? And M&T Bank Stadium was rocking the way we all knew it would be, just rocking. One of the loudest stadiums in the league. I've been saying this for years, but the Ravens just weren't good enough pre-Lamar for people to notice this. And also the M&T Bank Stadium prices out most of their fan base in Baltimore City, but that's a story for another day. The Baltimore Ravens have one of the best fan bases in the world, and they showed that for about the first 2 drives for the Chiefs. The Ravens come out, 3 and out, punt. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs come out. I'm sorry to laugh, Ravens fans, but they come out. Mahomes goes 5 for 5, 57 yards on a 10-play drive, 86 yards, just under 6-minute drive, which ends with the perfect throw and catch to Travis Kelce on Kyle Hamilton. Ravens fans swore all week long Kyle Hamilton was going to put the straps on Travis Kelce. And what makes it worse, Kyle Hamilton couldn't have covered him any better. That was just a perfect throw and catch from 2 players who've been playing together for 6 goddamn years in a lot of games like that one and knew exactly where to throw and catch the ball. They probably ran that play a million times. But then, Lamar makes his second most impressive play of the day, where he goes off the blitzing linebacker and just heaves it down the field to Zay Flowers. They get the touchdown. Zay Flowers is swag surfing in the end zone. It's beautiful. The crowd's right back in it. It's looking like we're about to get a classic. I may have tweeted it out. Oh, we're getting a classic game. What do the Chiefs do? 16 plays, 75 yards, 9-minute drive. Ends in a touchdown. The Ravens crowd was already out of it at that point, and then the Ravens fumbled, strip sack on Lamar Jackson 4 plays later. The crowd was out of it from that point on. The whole crowd got what Bomani Jones refers to as a lemon booty. Everybody was just stuck. And the Lamar playoff performance, we'll get there shortly, but more so watching your defense, who have been bullying the shit out of people all year long. 49ers got bullied by that Ravens defense. The Dolphins got bullied. The Lions got bullied. Side note, Ravens fans had to feel sick watching that NFC game. 2 teams that they beat the shit out of this year, playing each other for the chance to go to a Super Bowl where they should have been. Well, in their mind, they should have been. Just sweet Jesus. But watching your defense get done like that, 2 drives in a row, oh man, the crowd was done. The crowd was done. And from that point on is where the Ravens offense just immediately went into panic mode and said, you know what? We got to throw our entire game plan out the window. Or let me rephrase that. I hope they threw their game plan out the window, because if you came into a game where you're the #1 running team in the league and you just watched the Chiefs give up 182 yards on the ground last game with no intention of running the ball more than 16 times, I need Todd Monken brought up on charges, because Jesus Christ. I had all the Ravens drives in front of me a second ago. Hold on. So the 7 possessions between Lamar's insane touchdown to Zay Flowers I mentioned earlier and when they got their next field goal, right? And technically it's 8, but I'm not going to count the end of the half. They just took a knee and got up out of there. We're not counting that. Fumble, punt, 5 plays, punt, 3 plays, punt, 3 plays, punt, 7 plays, fumble, 5 plays. That was when Zay Flowers dove for the goal line, which again, if you've heard me on this podcast before, for the love of God, people, stop reaching for the goddamn goal line. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Only bad things happen. If anything, if you want to be Mr. Tough Guy and you just have to go in for the goal line, lower your goddamn shoulder. Try that. Lower your shoulder. Lower your shoulder, hold on to the ball, and run through some people instead of trying to be goddamn Superman and reach with the ball. Try that one. Interception where Lamar threw a prayer up where in the postgame he said he was trying to get a pass interference call where all the Ravens fans all week long tried to tell us, oh, the refs are going to try and screw us because they want Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl, which I feel like I keep coming back to the same phrase. Guys, blaming the refs is for fucking losers. It's for fucking losers. But let's ignore how stupid that theory is for 2 seconds. And let's say you're right. Let's say the refs came in with an agenda to send Taylor Swift and the Kansas City Chiefs to the Super Bowl. Doesn't that mean you shouldn't headbutt Travis Kelce? Doesn't that mean you shouldn't punch Patrick Mahomes in the face mid-play? Doesn't that mean you shouldn't do the most obvious taunting penalty in the world? Now, I think taunting is a horrible, horrible penalty. I think it shouldn't be in the league. These are grown-ass men. Let them taunt each other, right? But I'm not on the competition committee. And as long as taunting is a penalty that you can get in the NFL, Zay Flowers knew that shit coming into the game, and goddamn it, I don't care if he's a rookie, he knew better. For the refs is Rick Crowd. Is that the plan you want to go in with if you think the refs are going to be against you? Is that the game plan? Did the refs make Lamar throw the ball in the triple coverage? Did the refs make Ronnie Stanley give up that strip sack? No, they didn't. Refs don't win games. Players do. I don't know what else to tell you. Now, as far as Lamar Jackson's actual performance, if you want to hear something funny, Lamar Jackson and Brock Purdy's numbers are damn near identical. Passing yards, Brock Purdy, 267. Lamar Jackson, 272. Both of them, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Rushing yards, Brock Purdy, 5 for 48, 0 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, rushing yards, 8 for 54, 0 touchdowns. Damn near identical. Was Lamar god-awful, terrible, oh my God, he choked in the playoffs? No. Was he MVP quarterback of the league? No. But I'm putting way more of that on Todd Monken than I am on him, because I don't know why in God's name, as good as Lamar Jackson is, you are coming out there and you're going to put him out there with 37 pass attempts. Why is that your game plan with Lamar fucking Jackson on your team? That should never be your game plan. For the love of God, Isaiah Pacheco had more carries than all your backs combined. He had 24. All your running backs had 16. And if you count all the scrambles that Lamar took, I believe it was 8. Let's add that to the called passing plays. So where are we at now? 45? 45? Oh, Jesus Christ. I gotta stop talking about this game or else I'm gonna have a fucking aneurysm. Just, oh. Clip number 2, we have by far my most viewed video on my YouTube. What do Aaron Rodgers and Katt Williams have in common? And it was until I looked back at it, I forgot that the Aaron Rodgers vaccine, Jimmy Kimmel accused him of being on Epstein list thing, and the Katt Williams Shannon Sharpe interview happened within the same 7 days. If not, I wouldn't have talked about it in the same thing. And this was my only creative way to figure out how I could fit both topics into the same podcast. So that was a segment. And I know it's by far my most viewed video because of all the comments of the anti-vaxxers and the conspiracy theorists, real mags. I called out their Jesus and Aaron Rodgers. And to that I say good. I hope it burns every time you watch it. Now share with your friends so they can hate watch it too. All right, roll the clip. So Katt Williams was on the Club Shay Shay podcast hosted by Shannon Sharpe. And boy, oh boy, if for whatever reason you've been under a rock for the past week and you have not seen this interview, I suggest after you like, rate, subscribe, all that fun shit to this podcast, go listen to it. Sending shots to Ricky Smiley for claiming that he was supposed to be Money Mike over him. Sending shots at Kevin Hart like he's been doing for seemingly the past 5 years. Steve Harvey for telling lies on a podcast. Cedric the Entertainer. Earthquake. A lot of people. I don't really know or care enough about these celebrities to defend their character or defend their honor to y'all. I barely vouch for people I know in real life because I don't know what they're like when I'm not around them. However, I will defend Katt Williams' right to do so and air out his grievances on the podcast. Because like he said, they were on Shannon's platform talking about him. So it's only right that since he's on the mic now, he goes out there and does it himself. Speaking of Shannon's platform, now I'm a fan of the Club Shay Shay podcast and Shannon Sharpe in general. And I've seen a lot of people took issue with Shannon's interview style and didn't like the way he conducted himself with Katt Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that is how Shannon Sharpe interviews. He is going to let you go. He's not cutting you off. This isn't Nori. He's not going to jump in every 3 seconds and, yeah, give it up for God, everybody. Like, no. Shannon's letting you rock, and he's going to interject where he sees fit, for better, for worse. Now, the line between letting the other person completely take over the interview and letting your guests talk all the time is very slim. Only about 3 people ever walk that line perfectly. And silly me, I don't expect the Hall of Fame tight end to be one of those people. But the main people I see that took issue with the way Shannon conducted the interview were the Big J journalists who, quite honestly, y'all just seem jealous. Like, just very envious and jealous. And this isn't the first time that we've noticed that the journalists have spewed a little extra venom to athletes that are in media. Now, most of us don't have journalism degrees. We don't know the art of the interview y'all do and how to articulate the points and follow up questions and where things are supposed to be placed. We may not know the intricacies of that, but we know what jealousy looks like. We know what envy looks like. We know what ill intentions look like. And that is what all y'all show. At the time I'm recording this, the Katt Williams interview for Shannon Sharpe is up to 31 million views. And a lot of y'all are very upset about it. I'm very happy that Shannon Sharpe went on Nightcap Saturday night and called y'all on it. It's like, y'all don't care about the way I interview people. This is his 100th-ish podcast. Again, I've been listening for quite a while. I've heard a majority of these podcast interviews. Nothing has changed within the way that Shannon interviews people. All that changed the attention on it. Thus is why envy is starting to show. Okay, now back to Katt Williams. So I'm not going to defend Katt's character because, again, I don't have any personal experiences with the man outside of the fact he's one of my favorite comedians ever. However, a lot of people did. The amount of smaller, quote unquote, smaller comedians that came out the woodwork and said, yeah, Katt been nothing but a stand-up guy to me. I was down on my luck. I was a just starting out comedian. Some random person gave me money and said it was on behalf of Katt Williams, or I found out Katt gave me money this way. So many stories about how great of a guy Katt Williams has been behind closed doors. My favorite of which being Boosie, when he first came out of jail, told the story about how Katt Williams gave him $15,000 when he didn't have a dime. He was living in a hotel with his family. He don't know Boosie from a can of paint. And Katt Williams was just like, Boosie home, here's $15K. Just because. So you couple that with outside of the aforementioned comedians Katt shot at in the Shannon Sharpe interview, every other comedian Shannon brought up on Celebrity period, Katt didn't have the issue with. He kind of bigged up a lot of people, especially the younger comedians who, if you're familiar with how comedians of Katt generation talk about the younger crowd, that is rare. That almost never happens. So when I couple those two things together, I don't think Katt's bitter. I don't think he's a hater. And it's not like Katt Williams is irrelevant. I hate when y'all try to do that on social media. Oh, they're just trying to get relevancy and they're trying to be a clout chaser. And nigga, he has an Emmy. He's fine. I tried to get tickets to see Katt Williams last year at Constitution Hall. And it was like a week or two before the show, all sold out. I couldn't get a ticket. So clearly he's doing okay. And it's just ultimately dismissive of the point he's trying to make. If you just don't like the fact he's talking about celebrities that you like, just say that. You don't have to just try to talk down on the man and say he's bitter. For what? But as he talks about the industry, this is one thing he brought up that I have an issue with. And it's not just a him thing. It's an all black people thing. And this is where the other people, you can skip to the Aaron Rodgers part on this one. He brought up the Illuminati a lot. And this is not the first time he's done it. He does it on stage too. And black people, I need us to let this Illuminati thing go. I need us to let it go. And it's for several reasons. First of which being, I have never heard y'all say that anybody who is not black is part of the Illuminati. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Bernard Arnault are up billions, and not a once have I ever heard y'all say that they sold their soul to the devil. But Steve Harvey got a couple $100 million, and magically him and Satan got to be besties. Does that make sense to y'all? The way it comes off to me is internalized self-hatred. The thought of black people becoming super rich and successful on their own merit is so unfathomable to you that they just had to sell their soul to the devil. Also, more importantly, am I the only one who remembers how the Me Too movement started? Am I the only one who remembers where the term cancel culture came from? It wasn't because a couple comedians wanted to tell gay jokes on stage and we wouldn't allow it. No. It started because men in a position of power were using that power to exchange sexual favors from women and sometimes other men in order for them to keep their career or progress in their career. You let Katt and other people who talk about the Illuminati sell it. That's kind of the story. It's you want to progress in your career, you got to come do this sexual favor for me. I think Katt said verbatim in the Shannon Sharpe interview, Harvey Weinstein tried to suck my penis 10 years ago in front of my whole agency. And that's kind of my point as to why I don't want us to keep using this Illuminati term. These people have names. Harvey Weinstein has a name. Jeffrey Epstein has a name. And those are just the people we know. And if we weren't too busy chasing ghosts, we could actually go find these people. Like, we shouldn't be chasing conspiracy. The answers are in front of us. We don't have to look very far. And if we were just unite just a little bit and start dealing with some facts of, hey, if Harvey Weinstein was comfortable enough to do this for years, he's just going to be the example because he's the most broad and most famous one, and also fuck Harvey Weinstein and everyone who thinks like him. If he so cavalierly was doing this for years unscathed, clearly he is not alone in this practice. Let's go find the rest of his cohorts. But instead, we're chasing a shadow Illuminati because, oh my God, conspiracy. Speaking of conspiracies, it actually segues me perfectly to Aaron Rodgers. And Nick Wright talked about this subject almost perfectly, and I don't want to regurgitate a lot of the things he said. But my main issue with Aaron Rodgers is, me personally, as a person that gets on a microphone pretty much daily, I not only think of the things I say, but I think of the people who will agree with the things I say. What do I mean by that? If I were to critique black women on any platform, and a bunch of these alpha male, red pill, He-Man, women hater clubs type niggas start championing my statements and me, I'm going to have to take a look in the mirror because that's not the side I want to be aligned with. I'm not with y'all. I don't share y'all line of thinking. And if that's how I'm starting to come off, I'm going to be concerned. Aaron Rodgers does not have that concern. This Jimmy Kimmel Epstein situation is the latest example. And I see a lot of those minions of his are asking, why is it such a big deal? Well, Jimmy Kimmel's a comedian. He should be able to take a joke. Calling someone a pedophile on national TV is not a joke, my nigga. That is called defamation of character. I'll read you the legal definition of defamation of character. This is straight from Forbes. Each state establishes its own definition for defamation of character. In general, however, it occurs when a false statement is made by a third party. The statement is presented as fact. The statement causes reputational damage. It can take place in two forms. False statement can be made orally, in which case you can sue for slander. And it can be made in writing, to which you can sue for libel. He said on ESPN, they just announced that Pat McAfee's show got 298 million impressions across all platforms in the month of December alone, which, shout out to Pat McAfee, that's an insane number. Let's say Aaron Rodgers is responsible for 10% of that. You're telling me that roughly 30 million people heard you say that this man is possibly a pedophile, and that's just tee-hee. No, bruh. To the point where the next day, people were photoshopping Jimmy Kimmel's name on the Epstein list. That's not a joke. As far as where that leaves Pat McAfee and Disney, at the time I'm recording this, it hasn't been announced whether Aaron Rodgers will be back on the Pat McAfee show or not. Hey, from the future. So Aaron Rodgers went back on Pat McAfee's show today, and if you guessed that he was going to take accountability and apologize to Jimmy Kimmel, you guessed wrong. Instead, he went the route of, the media twisted my words, and this is their plan to cancel me, and then he continued with his Alex Jones-esque rhetoric. So that was fun. Back to our regularly scheduled podcast. Because Jimmy Kimmel is a Walt Disney employee under ABC, the same way that Pat McAfee is a Walt Disney employee under ESPN. And if Pat McAfee can have people call Disney employees pedophiles on his show, and then later in the week Also call out a ESPN exec for trying to sabotage the show in the same week. Congratulations, Pat McAfee. You are now the most powerful person at ESPN. They suspended Stephen A. Smith for saying something about Michelle Beadle, of all people, who doesn't even work there anymore. So if Pat gets this off, oh man, salute to you. But here's where I am with Aaron Rodgers, and I need y'all to realize this. Aaron Rodgers is too far gone. Aaron Rodgers cannot be saved. Nobody has gone down this far of a path of the conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat person, and has come back the same person. Because of the amount of ignoring the facts and confirmation bias you have to already partake in before you get that far, all they know is doubling down, and they're going to continue to do so. Especially when you're a 100-millionaire future Hall of Fame quarterback who clearly has nobody around him who's pushing back on him, like we see every week on the McAfee show. You think anyone on the Jets is pushing back on Aaron Rodgers' batshit crazy thoughts? They can't even bring themselves to fire his offensive coordinator he likes, even though he's clearly terrible. You think they want to get into vaccine arguments with this man? The owner of the Jets, Woody Johnson, is part of the family that owns Johnson & Johnson, which makes baby wipes, lotions, and oh yeah, vaccines. If he can't get through to him, bruh, nothing. He's gone, bruh. There's nothing we could do about this. And another part that hits home for me always is the arrogance of that way of thinking. We don't hate Aaron Rodgers simply because he is an anti-vaxxer. There's a lot of anti-vaxxers in the world. I think you're stupid for reasons I'll get to later, but this is America. You have the right to be stupid, as long as you keep your stupid to yourself and not try to make other people stupid with you. It's the fact that Aaron Rodgers presents his stupidity as fact, and because he has such a large platform, that's the way it's perceived by so many people. And the arrogance of it comes from this. Aaron Rodgers likes to go at Dr. Fauci, right? Do y'all know what Dr. Fauci's level of education is? He has a bachelor's degree pre-medicine from Holy Cross, a doctorate degree from Cornell. He did a residency at the Cornell Medical Center. That was by 1968. So that is 10 years of medical education before another 15 years of experience in this field before Aaron Rodgers was even born. And he wants y'all to believe that he knows better than him. You know how crazy that sounds? And it hits a little closer to home for me because, full transparency, I have a degree in biology. I went to school for biology. Was going to get a doctorate degree, but story for another day on that one. As well as losing multiple family members to COVID, I would get into several arguments with friends, family members, co-workers, associates, where they would bring me these videos and these articles and these websites of this just terrible information about the vaccine and the COVID virus. And along my journey of getting this bachelor's degree, part of the curriculum is learning how to identify a credible source. I didn't realize how important that skill was until the pandemic, and I realized how easy it is to get y'all to believe some bullshit. The amount of times I had to go back and tell people, no, that's not how the body works. No, that's not what mRNA is. No, that's not what that study says. That's not how that's meant to be interpreted. No, that's not how the vaccine is made. The amount of times I've had to go back and forth with people, and even still, after giving concrete evidence because they did a couple hours of a YouTube deep dive, suddenly that trumps my 4 years of a college education. In Dr. Fauci's situation, the over 50 years of experience he has in the field because you decided to go on YouTube one day. Does that make sense? And Aaron Rodgers is the final level on a video game boss battle version of this person. And he gets to go on ESPN once a week and talk to Pat McAfee about it. Do we not get how fucking dangerous this is? And I know to his legion of anti-vaxxers, this is going to go in through one ear and out the other because facts and anything that doesn't agree with you, y'all don't agree with. And I always find that funny because y'all refer to yourself as free and independent thinkers. And it's crazy to me that all you free and independent thinkers all think the goddamn same. Next up on the clip list, I knew I wanted to include an audience question in there, and thankfully, one of the most listened to pure audio podcast episodes from y'all was the episode that this clip inhabits, the downfall of Stephen A. Smith. Someone flat out asked me that question, what do I think of the downfall of Stephen A. Smith? And I had a visual for the thumbnail style that the thumbnail for the YouTube version of this ended up becoming. I've had that idea for a while. I didn't know it was going to end up being for a downfall Stephen A. Smith video, but I'm happy I got to do it. And I think I tried to taking as many perspectives on this as I can. I didn't turn it to a slander Stephen A. Smith segment or a cape for Stephen A. Smith segment, because if you ask me how I feel, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle of those two things. And this segment represents that, but I think still keeps it entertaining. And apparently y'all agree because y'all kept downloading the episode. My favorite question that has been submitted: thoughts on the downfall of Stephen A. and First Take. So we touched on a Monica McNutt bit last week when we were doing the Caitlin Clark / the why does everyone think WNBA players were jealous segment. I'll put a little bit of the clip here.
Now we got to sit up here and watch every syllable. I resent that, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, so let me. I know we got to go to break. Welcome to the world of being a woman, Stephen A., and how you have to dance about your word choice and you have to please everybody and anybody as you navigate your being. We are talking about the world's greatest.
How about being a black man?
Being black. Hold on 1 second. Have you? So this is what I'm saying to y'all.
He had another little, I don't even want to call it an argument, little interaction with Andrea Carter on First Take. Love Andrea Carter, by the way. She's my favorite basketball analyst on ESPN.
You better hear me and hear me good. I am telling you right now, you are going to be underpaid for the rest of what I believe will be an illustrious career, unless you get your mind right about that marketing. It matters. It matters. Janae, you know I'm right.
I hear you.
You know I'm right.
I hear you, Stephen A., but I will not sacrifice my basketball knowledge and my integrity in terms of the game for marketing.
There's a very weird sports debate doc on ESPN Plus that if y'all want me to do a full review on, I will. But he produced it himself, and it's an ESPN project where they're basically covering themselves and how sports debate television revolutionized sports media. Meanwhile, there's people like Dan Le Batard and Dan Patrick that say that it ruined sports media, and they are not alone in that thought. But as far as the downfall of Stephen A., it kind of depends on what you mean by that, right? Because by all the metrics that they're looking at, they're still the #1 sports show in the world. I don't think they're exactly going for sports Emmys here, and their metric has always been ratings, and I think the metric moved to now engagement. And Stephen A's always told us what he values. He's never claimed to be the best NBA analyst in the world. He's never claimed to be the best X's and O's and host. And what does he always say? I have the #1 rated morning sports show or sports show, whatever the hell metric. And if the metric is now changed to engagement, in order to keep the thing he values most, that's what he's going to keep going to. And if you look at the ESPN business model, especially if you start looking at the way they do their social media, to their YouTube thumbnails, everything, they're kind of going with the whole all press is good press, all comments is good in comments, all engagement is bad engagement or whatever. They're just really the engagement bait, rage baiting thing has just become company policy, for better or for worse. My thing with Stephen A has always been, well, for one, I don't believe that he genuinely believes all the takes he says. In his core, I don't believe he believes them, or I don't believe he actually cares that much. If you're someone who values ratings as much as he does, and you're always fighting to keep the thing you value the most, I think eventually the thing that's going to get the most ratings and your genuine thoughts start to blend after a little bit. So I don't know if his mind immediately goes to, oh, this is going to rip on Twitter, or that's just the way he naturally thinks now after being on First Take for 11 years. I don't know, but that's just how it comes off to me. And let's be honest, there's been a lot of people that have been waiting on Stephen A. Smith's downfall because First Take has been so successful for so long. I know there was a lot of people who thought First Take was going to fail when Skip Bayless left the show because he started the show. And Stephen A's stars only continue to rise. And then after getting rid of Max Kellerman, where I think the quality of the show went down, but the ratings went up with the rotating cast, and it's clearly they know something that we don't. Is First Take in its current iteration for me? No, it's not. Only time I watch First Take stuff is when I know it's a major story and I'm going to have to talk about it on here. I'll be honest. For my own personal enjoyment or entertainment, I'm just not tuning in like that. But clearly I'm in the minority because that shit's on ESPN. It's the biggest sports show in the world. And as much as we love our content creators, YouTubers or whatever, they're not doing First Take numbers. I love Kenny in the Fourth. I love Theo Ash. They're not doing first take numbers. And hey, they're not aiming to do first take numbers. They're doing what they love to do. And that is fine. Everyone has their own lane. Everyone's doing what they want, and that's all cool. The downfall I find a lot more interesting, though, is Shannon Sharpe. Because I was a much bigger Club Shay Shay fan last year-ish because it was a lot less messy than it became post-Katt Williams. Because he started chasing that high, too, after he saw how much that Katt Williams interview ripped. And a lot of people were coming on to the Club Shay Shay to try and get their Katt Williams moments too. So it's not all his fault. Let me shoot him a little bit of bill here. And I saw the public perception of him change too. Because before that, he was just everybody was on his side after his Skip Bayless fallout. Because we want to see a black man win. You know how we get down. We see a black man get wrong, we all with him. We like, hell yeah, get your money. But another part of it is, I think more people like the concept of Shannon Sharpe as opposed to his actual content of what he was doing. And once they started digging in and started watching a nightcap, where it gets a little more of those regular nigga on a podcast mic dating topic type things, chasing those trending topics that you know is gonna rip on social, but like, you're 56, my brother, you don't gotta live like this. And I gotta put this clip in here.
You said that he and JJ had that podcast, Mind the Game, and it's supposed to be X's and O's. Let me tell you something. If you ever want to start a podcast, and this is what I tell Stephen A., you got to be able to adapt. You got to be able to branch out. Because if all you talk about X's and O's, it ain't gonna last very long.
When he said the X's and O's thing in that clip, it really broke my heart a little bit. Because, Shannon, it hurts that you feel that way. Because not only are you a Hall of Fame tight end and one of the best ever, the offense you played in was Shanahan Sr.'s offense, which a lot of that DNA is all over the league by way of Shanahan Jr., especially in the run game. It's very similar. And you'd be able to perfectly explain that to people and still do the other stuff you want to do. I don't think it's an either or proposition. You could do both. But again, they're much more successful than I am. The same day this podcast comes out, whatever clip that I think me and Club Shay Shay dropped the same day. So put my numbers next to Club Shay Shay's, and if he hears this by some miracle, he'll tell me to shut the fuck up because clearly he knows something I don't. So hey, who am I to judge? So now we have what I call my most prophetic and short-sighted video. Somehow this segment happens to be both, with the Mansplaining women's basketball with Caitlin Clark, and talked about the ratings of the women's game as it was rising. And this was before the March Madness tournament even started. I'll tell you the exact incident that spawned this video. It was Dan Orlovsky going on First Take and saying that he went to a UConn's women's basketball game and was surprised how good the women were. And as stupid as that was, as sexist as it was, and now that we know a little bit more about the way Dan Orlovsky sees the world, it makes a lot more sense. Really wrung out, one, he was at UConn when Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, and them were there. So that's a tough look. That, you know, you had one of the most dominant women's basketball teams in college basketball history at your team. You didn't bother to peek over. And UConn football sucked at the time, so I know they were way more bigger deal than you were. But the way I look at this video and the way I tried to analyze it was off some seeing what the oncoming wave of basketball discourse was just going to completely change over the WNBA community. Because if you saw what WNBA Twitter was before this season, it was nothing even close. It's the most tight-knit, inclusive group of people you will ever meet. Everybody love each other. Everybody support all the athletes. It's a big, great family. Until the Caitlin Clark stand showed up and they burned down everything like the Fire Nation. And the short-sighted part was I didn't account for the racist incels that were going to join on behalf of Caitlin Clark. In my defense, they didn't really start popping up until the March Madness tournament, which we'll get to when we get to the last clip of this top 5 video. But we'll get there. Let's get to mansplaining women's basketball first. I know I said I was going to mansplain women's basketball. Pitchforks down, torches down. That was just to get your attention. I'm here to talk. I'm here to discuss. I'm here to have a dialogue. That's all I'm here for. I've always been a fan of the women's basketball game, right? Ever since I saw Maya Moore on TV for the first time, my jaw literally dropped, and I was like, with each bucket, the misogyny was just leaving my young body. It was amazing to watch. Like UConn Maya Moore even though she was incredible for the Lynx as well. Like, for y'all that weren't watching for the Maya Moore era, please do yourself a favor. Go watch Maya Moore. She's incredible. In my eyes, still the best. I always say she's the coldest woman on 2 feet. I know the Cheryl Millers, Lisa Leslie's, and Diana Taurasi, Sue Birds, blah, blah, blah. Maya Moore is my personal GOAT. But that, and I'll tell this quick anecdote before I get to my actual point. Freshman year of high school, moved to a new county, so I didn't know anybody there. It's very important for this story. It was the first week, and I was in gym class, and I don't know how 13-year-old Kev found himself in a conversation with this woman who was just chilling, shooting a basketball. I was a little bit of a shit talker back then, as I am now. And somehow, some way, my shit talk led to me playing this woman one-on-one to 11 points, make it, take it. When I tell y'all, I never touched the ball because halfway being a gentleman and a dickhead, I say, oh no, ladies first, you can have the ball first. Check ball. She got to 11 points before I got to 0. In the first 5, she did not move and kept hitting the jump shot. And then the rest of them, she just put me in the mix and kept getting to the bucket. Completely foot to ass, full blown whoop my ass performance. That woman was Brene Bones Mosley, who was the star basketball player at Paint Branch High School. I did not know that at the time. I found that out like 15 minutes later. Ended up getting a full scholarship to University of Maryland. I know she played in the WNBA for a while, I believe for the Indiana Fever. And once again, with each bucket, the misogyny just left my body. So I say I like to say I've always been a fan of the women's game. I'm not going to act like I'm deep analytics, deep research, full-blown Monica McNutt breaking the game down from every angle. I'm not going to act like that, but I'm a fan of the game, right? And with the growth of the women's basketball game, that has undeniably been happening over the past year, 2 years or such, I've noticed something about women's basketball fans that I feel like I have to bring to the forefront. Women's basketball fans treat newcomers the way that guys treat women who say they're into sports. Like, oh, you like women's basketball? Well, what color were Aaliyah Boston's braids when she won the national championship at South Carolina in 2022? Like, well, okay, relax. They're new here. Now, that doesn't say that as you're a newcomer to the women's game, you don't owe it to the people who've been here to not come in and try to make yourself an expert in the field. If, for example, we talked about Maya Moore earlier, if you don't know who Maya Moore is and you've never watched her dribble a basketball once, yeah, you should probably go discover that. But at the same time, if you're really invested in the women's game growing, instead of coming out with your pitchforks to the people who may not be the most well-versed in the women's game, should you not, I'm not going to say baby them or hold their hand through it, but be like, hey, I see you're interested. Let's point you in another direction. For example, Dan Orlovsky, and he's a unique case, and we'll get to why later. He went to a UConn's basketball game. He said it on First Take. I think it was either last Friday or last Thursday. He was like, wow, I can't believe how good they are. Now, he went to UConn during the Diana Taurasi era, so that one's rough. That one, little tough for you to be at UConn during one of their most historical runs and just never make it to a women's basketball game, ever. Instead of piling on him, wouldn't it have been better to be like, oh, you like physical play? Cool. Why don't you go watch Don Staley and them in South Carolina? They play pretty goddamn physical down there. I'm sure you'll love it. Why don't you go watch Alicia Pillai at Utah? She's pretty goddamn physical. You'll love her. I feel like that's a better way to facilitate the growth of the game as opposed to this pitchforks, knives out instantly. I just don't feel like that helps. And as far as the growth of the game, I think what really gives people a more pessimistic view of the women's game is the fact they're comparing it to the modern NBA instead of comparing the point that the WNBA is now to where the NBA was at the same stage of their development of leagues. So the WNBA is 27 years old. The league was founded in 1996, but they didn't play their first game until June of 97. So for all intents and purposes, 27 years old this year. So instead of comparing it to the 2024 NBA, compare it to the 1976 NBA, because that's the point it's at. And in 1976, the NBA was in disarray. The 70s era of the NBA was the cocaine era, was the abuse era, poor public image. There is the league 2 Black Sports Illustrated articles. Games weren't on TV. The finals were on tape delay. There were 4 separate teams that are facing financial bankruptcy. If you've seen the show Winning Time, the reason why Jerry Buss was able to buy the Lakers was because they were facing bankruptcy. Now compare that to the WNBA or women's game in general. Every time Caitlin Clark steps on TV, she's breaking every single record. By the way, salute to Caitlin Clark for breaking Pistol Pete Maravich's record for being the all-time leading scorer in college. Enjoy that record now, because Juju Watkins is on yo ass. We'll cross that bridge 3 years from now when she gets there, but not the point. That's according to Forbes. Every single record she breaks, TV ratings, attendance ratings. They had their first game of the year at the football stadium at Iowa. And that's in Iowa. No shade to Iowa, but y'all know what I'm saying. Last year, March Madness set records on every single ESPN platform for the women's game. The 2023 WNBA Finals had their highest viewership in the 20 years they've been on ESPN. So when the NBA at this point in their development was in the literal gutters and facing bankruptcy, the WNBA is at its highest point almost 30 years in, and no signs of slowing down at all. If you think about it, not only are they ahead of schedule from a pacing wise, we can look anecdotally as well, because the equivalent of Caitlin Clark and even Angel Reese for LSU would be the Magic and Bird thing when they came into the league. And that's what propelled the NBA to being a more televised brand and being able to be marketed a little better, right? Well, your Magic and Bird is on the way, WNBA. Caitlin Clark already declared she's coming out. Angel Reese has not declared whether she's coming back to LSU for a 5th year or not. I'll be honest, I'll be surprised if she does. But Paige Becker says she's coming back, so who knows? Juju Watkins, we got another 3 years of her at USC, and then she's going to go to the league. WNBA already has superstars with their aces. Arika Gumbawale. Candace Parker will be back off injury this year. The stars are already in place. Everything's there for the WNBA to continue to grow. And like Maya Moore said on a College Game Day, ahead of the Ohio State-Iowa game this past Saturday, which can't believe Maya Moore came out the house. That salute to Caitlin Clark. I don't know how you pull that one off. Maya Moore don't leave the house for nobody. She's always said, all you got to do is get the women's game in front of people and people will flock to it. God damn it if that's not true. And to bring it all full circle, putting Maya Moore in front of me was what made me a fan of the women's game. The moment I saw her, I was like, oh yeah, I'm in. So to put a bow on this probably incoherent rambling, that hopefully I'll be able to edit into something that makes sense. The women's game is set to grow exponentially, and by the end of the decade, I would be shocked if we don't have superstars all over the place, right? But as new fans come in, there's going to be a lot more Dan Orlovsky moments like we saw, where it's going to be a lot more stupid shit said. It's going to be a lot more dumb fans set coming in. It's going to be a lot more casuals. And because the women's game fans are so niche and they're such a tight-knit group and they do know so much in detail when it comes to these players, these teams, and this history, I know it can feel a little hard to let these guys in. But if the game is going to grow, they're on the way. Think about how shitty NBA Discourse is right now. At some point, that is going to happen to WNBA Discourse. If you think it's bad now, just wait till we start getting Kelsey Plum Muse and the stand pages for Angel Reese and all that. They're like, it's coming. It's on the way. So I'm just preparing you now. With growth comes stupidity. And to an extent, you got to welcome it with open arms. All right, last clip of the top 5. And this whole episode that this clip lives in is actually my personal favorite podcast episode. It was right after the Women's National Championship. It starts with Dawn Staley's legacy talk and the legacy of that South Carolina basketball team, because no other sports show was leading off with the team that actually won. And it really was pissing me off at the time because, damn it, this is sport. We talk about the winner. I don't care how famous the losers are. We talk about winners here. That segment was great. The Caitlin Clark segment, I kind of did like a deep dive on the discourse on her specifically as opposed to the WNBA discourse as a whole that I tried to do before. And then afterwards, I kind of did an Angel Reese side of that because I was the week before. When did LSU lose? I think they lost in the Elite Eight. Yeah, they lost in the Elite Eight. After they lost to Iowa in the Elite Eight, Angel Reese was bringing down a crown on the podium. And the response to her really led for me to do a segment on her as well. And a segment I'm genuinely proud of too. And I love that thumbnail as well. And then we ended, I think it ends with NFL draft questions because all that was going on at the same time. I could just see the lack of sleep in my face as I was watching this video, by the way. It was actually hilarious looking back at it. But funny story about this Caitlin Clark segment you're about to watch. So I go to Full Sail University. Not sure if I've talked about that on mic before, but I'm in their Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting program and everybody. So often they have a Dan Patrick feedback session where we're all in the Zoom session and we present 2-minute clips to Dan Patrick and our course director. Is it course director or program director? Program director. Sorry, Mr. Ramsey. Our program director, Gus Ramsey. They all give us feedback on 2-minute segments of our work. It usually is geared toward coursework, but at the time I didn't really get into my on-camera coursework yet, but I've been doing this for about a year. And I was like, hey, I don't know how many times I'm going to have the opportunity to get my work in front of arguably the greatest sportscaster to ever live. So why not? So I took a 2-minute segment from this. I think it was the GOAT conversation part. When y'all get to that, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And both Mr. Patrick and Mr. Ramsey loved it. Outside of an Allen Iverson comparison I threw in there, which to their credit, they were right. It was unnecessary and distracting. But yeah, and getting that feedback from them really kept me going for a while. Like through times that I really was not feeling like, forget recording, I wasn't feeling life for a while. Not off no I want to jump off a bridge type shit, but like just off some everything is hard. I don't want to do anything right now. I just want to curl up into a ball, lay down. Like it would be a lot of like when the self-doubt crept in, like their little voice would be like, hey, Dan Patrick thinks you're awesome. Like, hey, keep going. Hey, your program director thinks you're awesome. Keep going. Keep doing the thing. And here I am still doing the thing. So thank you to Mr. Patrick. Thank you to Mr. Ramsey. Thank you to all of you beautiful people for listening this far into the podcast. You got a nice little name drop, by the way, at the end of this video. This by the way, the Dan Patrick story happened in March, and I'm just now telling that story. I'm not a big name dropper guy. Like that's just not how I get down. I think people that do that is corny, but it's fitting. Kind of a full circle moment to end this podcast and kind of close this chapter of the podcast existence and the way I create content. So again, thank you everybody for listening. Taking off next week. We'll be back the week after with the new iteration of what we do on this show, the channel, and all the content I do thus far. I won't be disappearing from all of socials, period, by the way. I got to throw that disclaimer out there. I'm not disappearing, period. You'll still get just green screen videos of me talking about insert breaking news here. I'm still doing the NFL recaps in 60 seconds because I'll always love those videos. They're not going anywhere. But yeah, other than that, I'll be gone. Cool? Cool. Thanks for listening. Hit the elephant in the room first thing foremost. When people ask why Caitlin Clark is on the rise, the first thing they bring up as to why it becomes so controversial is because she's white. There's a long history of the great white hope in particularly boxing and basketball, but the great white hope in athletics in general is a main theme that we constantly encounter with sports narratives, right? You add in that there are few forces stronger than white woman victimhood in all of America, because I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of her rise to fame was after Angel Reese hitting her with the same taunt that she hit in the Final Four the week before that happened last year's national championship. Now, to Caitlin Clark's credit, and I will always give her credit for this, every outlet gave her every chance to play the victim, and she turned it down every single time. She stood on business every time, which again backs my point. No one hates Caitlin Clark. She's done nothing wrong. She's done nothing wrong. And before we get to the why everything has to be made about race, man, why do y'all make everything about race? Well, one, I live in Maryland and a boat hit a bridge in Baltimore and the Republican crowd blamed it on our quote unquote DEI mayor because apparently you can get hired to be the mayor as a diversity hire. Because elections don't exist anymore. Fucking idiots. So I'm not hearing your everything's about race arguments anymore. Fuck out of here. Next, we got play style. The way Caitlin Clark plays basketball is naturally exciting. One of the most exciting forces ever in any NCAA tournament is when the random white guy who's going to end up selling insurance randomly gets hot from three, like the dude from Oakland College that's not in Oakland, California, whose name is escaping me right now. Whatever his name is. When the random white dude gets hot from 3 in the NCAA tournament, we love it. We're locked in every single time. Only difference is, this isn't a random white dude. It's the white superstar who's gonna end up being the first pick in the draft. This doesn't happen except for one other case. Steph Curry. I know he ain't white, but follow me here. When Steph Curry was at Davidson, it was must-see TV. For y'all that weren't alive for this or weren't basketball fans for this, oh, buddy, you missed out. Oh my God, it was great watch. And Nick Wright made this point, and I'm gonna steal it and add on to it. Hear me out on this, right? Caitlin Clark is the Kobe to Steph Curry's Michael Jordan. What I mean by that is every single player who grew up watching Michael Jordan attempted to emulate his play style. Kobe Bryant is the only one who did it successfully. Every single player who grew up watching Steph Curry tried to emulate his play style. Caitlin Clark is the only one to do it successfully. That is what I mean when I say the Steph and Caitlin similarities. You could even see the discourse of it is very similar. You got the professional players and former players saying, yo, this ain't gonna work when you get to the WNBA. The game's different, blah, blah, blah. And we'll get to the WNBA point a little later in this segment. But here's the difference. And this is the main separator as to why those two things are received so differently. When Steph was coming up, nobody was saying that Steph Curry was already better than Michael Jordan before he went to the NBA. That's the difference. That's the difference right there. There are people saying Caitlin Clark is the GOAT right now before she even played in the WNBA. And that's just silly. It's just silly. Next step is the media hype and the media attention. I'm going to couple this with the type of coverage and the timing that Caitlin Clark is playing in. Two parts of this. One, I remember Rebecca Lobo in the Women of Troy documentary on HBO that centers around that Cheryl Miller, Cynthia Cooper, McGee twin USC team that went back-to-back championships. Iconic women's basketball team, covers the history of women's basketball as well. For new fans of the women's game, go watch that. That'll pretty much catch you up to speed, right? But Rebecca Lobo made this point I thought was prominent. She said, if I was born 10 years earlier, the facilities I was able to make use of at UConn would not have been there because Title IX wasn't in place yet. So I am a Title IX baby. Let's apply that to Caitlin Clark. If she was born 10 years earlier, the media coverage wouldn't have been the way it was, regardless of how good she is. But let me tell you the common denominator on every single one of those issues I just listed, right? Here's the one common denominator. None of that matters if Caitlin Clark was not really fucking good at basketball. None of that matters. There ain't enough media hype in the world. Ain't enough white woman victimhood in the world. Ain't enough you play so cool in the world. You can't be pretty enough. You can't be enough. None of that matters if she is averaging 2 points a game. She's the all-time leading scorer in points in the NCAA history, male or female. This media hype, the white privilege, is not putting the ball in the basket for her. Side note, I can't wait to get a bunch of comments from the first half of this video for people that did not make it this far. If you made it this far, just go ahead and put a laughing emoji next to those. She's second all-time in assists. She owns so many records for tournament play, etc., etc. Caitlin Clark is incredible, which at the base of all of this is what makes this shit go, because she's good. Which leads me into the GOAT conversation for her. And are we ready for some nuance, ladies and gentlemen? I know we don't do nuance on our sports talk anymore, but I have to. I can't help it. She is already a legend. I'll take it one step further. Caitlin Clark is already a Hall of Famer. She's just not the GOAT yet. And that is okay. If God forbid she doesn't take a single dribble in the WNBA, she is already going to the Hall of Fame because it is called the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not called the NBA or WNBA Hall of Fame. College players are in the Hall of Fame. How do I know that? See Cheryl Miller, who is at the tippity top of the GOAT list, if we're going to do that. And for y'all not familiar with Cheryl Miller, the only reason why she didn't play in the WNBA was, one, it didn't exist yet, and two, she had a catastrophic knee injury the summer after her senior year anyways. Now, in a separate conversation, I think all GOAT conversations are dumb, to be completely honest. Everyone has their own personal criteria. We don't have a single set of rules to what makes somebody a GOAT and what makes somebody not, which is weird in a sport where we have numbers for literally fucking everything. But GOAT conversations, we're all just spitballing here. But sure, for the sake of the exercise, let's do it. Imagine showing up to the GOAT party completely ringless and looking 4-time champion Breonna Stewart in the face. How does that even make sense to you? Looking at Maya Moore in the face, Caitlin Clark's hero, by the way, when her worst season at UConn was a loss in the Final Four. There are no GOAT conversations, regardless of sport, that feature players that don't have rings. Example, I love Allen Iverson. He is the most impactful and most influential basketball player to ever live, debate your mama. However, in GOAT conversations, I gotta leave him out of it because he don't got a ring. Does that sound familiar to y'all? And that is okay. That does not make Allen Iverson a lesser player. We all love AI. And we haven't even got to the WNBA part of this conversation yet, and I also find that interesting. First, let's go to the viral Diana Taurasi quote that got everybody's panties in a bunch.
College guys come out, they're waiting for him. I mean, Camilla's coming, Caitlin's coming, there's more than just that are coming. What will the league have in store for them when they get there?
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
Okay.
There's levels to this thing, and that's just life. We all went through it.
Of course.
And you see it on the NBA side, and you're going to see it on this side, where, you look superhuman playing against 18-year-olds, but you're going to come with some grown women that have been playing professional basketball for a long time. Not saying that it's not going to translate, because when you're great at what you do, you're just going to get better. But there is going to be a transition period where you're going to have to give yourself some grace as a rookie. And, it might take a little bit longer for some people.
Now, before I break this clip down, notice how Sue Bird is sitting right next to her in this very clip, who has been nothing but complimentary of Caitlin Clark, including a whole segment on her ESPN show, Sue's Places, where she interviews Caitlin Clark, has a shoot around with her. I think in that same game, when asked to pick between who she'd build her team around, Paige Beckers or Caitlin Clark, UConn alumni Sue Bird picked Caitlin Clark. Nobody brings that up because we just love to focus on negativity, but sure. Now back to the clip. First, you see how she wasn't just talking about Caitlin? She was talking about all the rookies. Second, she's absolutely fucking correct. Going from college to the pros is really fucking hard, regardless of sport. It's hard for everybody. And not only is it not hating for Diana Taurasi to do this, she is more than qualified to be the person to say this. She went from being a 3-time champion, 3-time All-American at UConn, averaging 16.2 points as a senior at UConn, to going to the WNBA and averaging 17 points a game, first team All-WNBA and one Rookie of the Year. So if anyone can talk about how the transition between the WNBA and college is, it's her. And what else bothers me from the discourse around Caitlin Clark and the separator between her herself is she don't even agree with y'all. Roll the clip.
Caitlin, Carolyn Fitzgerald from Goals. You're an inspiration to so many young girls. But you're also an inspiration to so many women who played sports and basketball when they were growing up. So what message would you like to share with those women who've helped blaze this trail to have women's basketball shine like it is today?
I would say the biggest thing is just thank you. And, that's what I always talk about is like, women's basketball isn't just suddenly good. Like, it's been good.
So to the other side of this, day one WNBA fans and women's basketball fans, I do hope that we can make the distinction between how Caitlin Clark feels about her predecessors and women's basketball players and the way these new wave of fans feels, because they could not be more dissimilar. Speaking of which, due to Caitlin Clark elevating the game, which is undeniable fact, by the way. Go look at all the TV ratings and viewership that's been happening her last 3 games. It's ridiculous. Would the success of Caitlin Clark in the WNBA ultimately be good for the entire league? From where I'm sitting, unequivocally yes. Right? But these are still competitive athletes she's going against. They aren't going to welcome her in with open arms and an open lane to the hoop. That's not how this works. You are still a rookie. You want to be the face of the league? Go earn that shit. And why would we want it any other way? Look how we reacted when they called the most blatant moving screen in the world against Leah Edwards at the end of the UConn game, saying that they were cheating for her in that fashion. Imagine if they actually did on the WNBA. You'd all be pissed. So let's just, hypothetically speaking, say she goes to a WNBA full of vets that all hate her, which we know isn't true, but for the sake of the exercise, let's say that's true. Good. For a player like Caitlin, that's fantastic. Can you imagine the first time she hits a Steph Curry-esque fuck you 3 in Diana Taurasi's eye? How crazy that's going to go on the timeline? This is what we should want. This is sports. So in conclusion, because this segment has already gone longer than I wanted to, guys, we can have nuance in these conversations. I promise we can. Is Caitlin Clark a generational player, incredible talent, and a legend in her own right? Yes. Has she already elevated women's basketball to a point that cements her as a Hall of Famer already? Yes. Is she already the GOAT of women's hoops? No. This isn't hard. This is not hard. I promise it isn't.